Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. If you know me, you know there was a joke in there somewhere, right? It's about the media. We talk about art, culture, politics, the news. I'm a news guy who is now doing this in my closet, in my seersucker. It's hot, but we got some important things to talk about. Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez will be here. Asian American Studies, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. He'll be up to talk about topics like the ballroom. We'll talk about the primaries. We'll talk about some ICE raids happening to Asian Americans in the Bay Area, what's going on. And I want to talk about Jason Arday. You may not have heard about Jason Arday. I have to admit, when I saw the headlines in the New York Times about the youngest black man ever appointed as professor, ever hired as professor to Cambridge, at Cambridge University in England. I said, "Oh, do I want to really understand? That's not. It doesn't have to do with me." I thought, and then here's the story: Arday is dead. It hasn't been officially pronounced that it was him taking his own life, but he was found dead a week ago today after a mounting campaign of allegations about his scholarship, about plagiarism in his PhD thesis at Cambridge. It was put out by a known racist who has been since suspended from his job at a European university while these allegations are being sorted through. Cambridge has not decided whether or not Jason Arday plagiarized, but in the meantime, this guy has a new book that's out called Great and Unfortunate Things. And now, one of the unfortunate things in the life of Jason Arday is his death. His death. And like I said, I wasn't originally attracted to the story at first, but the more I got into it, here's a guy who was grew up single parent. He was diagnosed with autism. No one thought he would read. No one thought he would amount to anything. He becomes a PhD, the youngest black man ever appointed to as full professor or tenured professor at Cambridge. A tremendous amount of pressure. He suddenly becomes a target. Everyone comes after him. And then finally, earlier this month, the scholar came out with accusations and side by side saying, here's plagiarism. Other people piled on, including the New York Times journalist John McWhorter. You may have seen an interview I did with the noted author Ishmael Reed, who said McWhorter's responsible for this man's death. I don't know if I go that far, but Ishmael also said this is part of an overall conspiracy by people who want to continue to denigrate diversity, equity, inclusion, not just at American universities and American institutions, but worldwide. Because, as Ishmael pointed out in my interview with him, he said, Peter Thiel, the PayPal guy is behind this. Peter Thiel, who left America to live in Argentina and who is funding all of these sort of efforts to, to make culture essentially white. I just think that we are, we have this global sense of the attack on diversity, equity, inclusion. That's what Jason Arday represented. And the more I read his story about what he overcame. Now, I'm not saying he was not guilty. I mean, there's still the plagiarism charges are still being investigated. But there were other things that he seemingly fabricated, like running multiple marathons in short periods of times and just making these wild claims that make it sound like he was some kind of Superman. I don't know if they were true, but for the most part, they look like on their face, not credible. But the final straw, it would appear to be this onslaught of criticism from within And he wrote as much that, hey, this has become a burden. I don't know if it was enough for him to take his life, but it appears that that happened. Should that have happened? And what are the lessons we can learn about the Jason Arday story? And because the biggest thing is we have an academic, really a wunderkind, who is no longer with us. Was there a way to go about the plagiarism charges without really trying to take him down so totally so that he takes his own life? Or that's the allegation. We'll have to see after the coroner makes its report. But I want to bring on Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, Professor Emeritus, because College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. Because Dan, you know academic politics, and in some ways this could be a form of jealousy, a form of, and then there's the whole ideology about DEI mixed in. So let's talk about this. It's good to see you, Dan. When you
Yeah,
first heard
thanks
the
for having
story,
me on. Welcome.
yeah,
It's Friday.
yeah, yeah. When you
Yeah,
first heard the story, did you? I mean, my first reaction was, this doesn't involve me. It's in England, the UK, it's Cambridge, but it really is about everyone, person of color, who's trying to make it into these establishment, mostly white spaces.
I think because of all of the events that have happened, especially involving the Trump administration against major universities,
Mm.
and not only the Ivy League universities, but
Yeah.
especially the Ivy League universities, because of what they represent, right?
Mm.
In the kind of cultural mythology of American society. And in this instance, you're talking about Cambridge in England, which is part of the cultural mythology of the Brits.
Mm.
So yeah, it involves everyone because of the Trump administration's persecution and prosecution, literally, of major universities in American society, and then the effects that it's had. Now, we also have to remember that several black professors
Mm.
of Ivy League universities left those universities under their own motivation over the past 10 years. And some of them moved over to historical black universities and colleges,
Mm.
and others just moved to other Ivy League institutions. One of the great studies is Professor Glod, of course, and Eddie Glod, a
Mm.
person who I have great respect for, and who I follow on social media and everything else. Now let's get back to our day. One of the reasons I became immediately interested in this matter was because I have had to deal with the defense of professors who have been, in fact, accused of plagiarism. I've also had to deal with open plagiarism by students, and I've also been the victim of plagiarism by people writing for other institutions or writing for well-known ethnic magazines in the
Mm.
past.
And copying you
Yeah,
without
yeah,
attribution. Yeah.
yes. And I don't know if that's happened to you, but it's happened to
Oh
a lot of
yeah.
us.
Yeah. If you're
Yeah,
out there, and damn the copyright, and it's especially bad now when
yeah.
we're in an AI world, right?
Yes. So it's so easy. It is
Yeah.
so freaking easy. And we used to catch people openly because they didn't even bother to change some of the language, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
just outright plagiarism in the most common sense. And then there's a slightly doctored kind of restatements of our material without, again, accreditation. And it's been done on a mass level by people who were given great credibility in academia. And I There are a couple of professors, some of them closely associated with the great Ronald Takaki, for
Yeah.
example, who had committed massive plagiarism, and I contradicted their positions publicly as the keynote speaker at the California Museum in Oakland many years ago, and it gave me great pleasure to do
Yeah.
that.
But one of the things is, look, plagiarism is unforgivable, passing someone else's work as your own. But essentially, it's just a kind of a lazy thing because you could quote someone else's work and just attribute it and say, as
It's
according to this.
really well, but see, the point is that people are trying to take credit for the actual thing as though they did it,
Right.
as though they did the research, and that this is first academic research done on by themselves. I've
Yeah.
seen plagiarism committed by professors of their graduate students' work.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and
But I
then
mean, but
gaining publication in office for and monetary reward for that. Now, so I was curious about what happened to this guy.
Mhm.
One, because the I wanted to see what he wrote, and when you look at what he wrote, he really was about DEI. Okay, it wasn't about the way he was hired; it was about how critical he was
Mhm.
of the British higher education system, and he cited ample evidence over a series of articles written. I would say at least a half a dozen of them were written between 24 and 2026. Okay, in other words, over the last 2 years.
yeah.
So he was really a hot producer of critical material at that time. And that, I think, was the motivation for Kompas, this guy, another professor at Ghent, right, who has
Right.
now been suspended, right, because
Right.
people are now looking at his work because his motivation, as you put it, seems to have been anti DEI. Okay.
And
So
he's
it's gotten
also
really complex. It's
yeah,
gotten
he's also
complex in that sense. Now, once again, it doesn't mean that Professor Arday did not commit plagiarism.
right.
He may
Right.
have done so, but the point is, as you have put it, was it worth his life? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, was this a way of discrediting the work that he had done that was critical, factually accurate, and
Mhm.
critical of
Yeah.
racism in the higher education system of Great Britain.
Yeah, and once Coffness, the skull, Nathan Coffness, once he started this in Substack, it started off a wave, a
Yes,
wave of
yes.
of criticism against Arday that I don't know if he was able to take it or not. Clearly, something uh, may have impacted him because I mean, he had a number of maladies. He himself he was diagnosed as being autistic as in an early age. He seemed to have things under control, but who knows? I mean, we don't know what his mental state was and what could have, uh, triggered something that you look back and say, you can't. Is it possible that we can criticize a man without destroying him completely, so that the possibility exists that he may have taken his life?
Well, uh,
I mean, that's the
you know,
academic world now.
yeah, yeah, and you have to take your victims, and I see him as a victim, but you have
Mhm.
to take your victims as they are, and it's an old legal principle. It's called the eggshell skull principle, and it means that you may have a person who is sensitive, perhaps more sensitive than others
Mhm.
on certain issues, and that they might react in this fashion, in a suicidal fashion, if that's in fact what occurred. We don't know yet. We don't know
Yeah.
for sure. There hasn't been any result from an autopsy that I'm aware of, and
Yeah,
I just
nothing,
suspect.
nothing formally. Yeah, yet. Cambridge isn't even complete in its investigation on the plagiarism charge. But we have all these other things, and then of course, beyond the scholarship, there were all these claims that Arde made in his press releases leading up to this book that came out within the very recently, the last few days. Great and unfortunate things It's his story about overcoming, childhood autism, single mom, never would never read, never write, never amount to anything. He became a PhD. He got hired at Cambridge, and now this. It's almost like he became a target, and that made him open season for everyone, which is why when I
Yes.
look at his story, I thought, oh, this is happening over there in England, nothing to do with me. But for everyone who has benefited from some form of affirmative action in the United States, in higher ed or in employment, uh, you are related to the Jason Arday story.
whether or not whether or not they're aware of it. So that's one of the problems, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the whole notion and the phrase itself,
Mhm.
affirmative action, right, has been toxic for about 40 years.
Yeah,
Okay. It was in question 60 years ago when it first was used. I think it was taken out of a speech given by President Johnson.
yeah,
And when was that? This is the mid 1960s
yeah,
during the Vietnam War and other
yeah,
crises, and so it was used positively from the left, right, and then adopted and accepted, but it was under constant fire.
yeah,
A good friend of ours, also a very admired and respected, now retired attorney, right, said we got to come up. I remember him saying this to me personally in the 80s. In the 80s, that's 40 years ago. Yeah, we got
yeah,
to come up with a different phrase. And
yeah.
so, I had already been involved in affirmative action type programs, special admissions programs. I was a LEOP admittee to law school myself. That's special admissions. Uh, Now, people are going to think, well, I was therefore underqualified. It depends on how you look at what qualified means. Okay.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and and the problem with the UC schools is, even though legally people who score 88% and above are supposed to be admissible to UC schools, right? If you when you
mhm,
take their exam, okay, only the top 2% ever get admitted, and that's been true since the
yeah,
1960s.
yeah,
We just don't have enough room. Okay, so people like me who scored very well on the entrance exam and all that stuff, we just didn't come up to the 2% standard.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's really a matter of resources. There weren't enough
Yes, it
spaces.
is.
You didn't get in. It's not the
Absolutely.
matter that you weren't good enough. The resources weren't there, so that complicates things.
Well, and the
But
reason that they didn't want to create more space and the
Mhm,
more institutions is they were starting to see education as what we intended it and what we assumed that it would be for us, and that
mhm.
is a move up, that we would be able to gain more social and economic mobility as a result of acquiring a higher education.
Which should
So
be good. Which should be good, but it was
we
a
we
threat to others.
it would be, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, the right started to see this as early as the 1970s. They started to see this as a problem because we were now beginning, we meaning people of color, and
Mhm,
particularly groups that had entered this society in post World War II immigration. That means, okay, that
mhm.
we were now becoming competitive with white people.
Yeah,
That's the reality. And
and
so they started to react.
and once you get used to repression, you start to miss it when you can't repress anymore. Yeah,
But they
yeah,
could repress. They
yeah.
kept
Well,
repressing. They
yeah,
kept
they kept
changing the
repressing.
rules. They
Yeah,
kept changing the rules. Remember when they said we want leadership qualities? And
yeah,
then because that would allow them to, make choices beyond the jocks,
yeah,
right? And so we want, so people who were like on the chess team, I mean, you were out of it. They wanted to see people who were successful on forensics, on
yeah.
speech and
It,
debate, right? Yeah, that
it,
kind of thing. And so
yeah,
when we started to succeed at that, then they wanted to see other forms of leadership, and they made the mistake of saying, well, maybe ROTC. not knowing that the biggest enrollment in ROTC in San Francisco, it was Filipino Americans,
Yeah.
right? At three
Hey,
different schools, okay? And so
hey,
then
Dan.
they started to qualify there. It's really ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
really ridiculous. It kept on changing the standard.
Well, yeah. Well, let's get back to Arday because it gets to the idea that you're unqualified. You don't
Yes.
belong. And there was our day, and maybe he fell prey to this idea that I've got to make up stuff. Like I got to be able to run, multiple marathons in a period of a couple of weeks. I got to be able to do all these extraordinary things because I'm extraordinary. And maybe something happened. I mean, because people were pointing not just at the scholarship, but they were pointing to these claims, and that didn't help his case either. So, and it almost fed into this idea. Yeah, you're not qualified because most of your qualifications in this resume pad thing is not real, not credible. And then so it created openings for guys like this guy Kaufness, uh, and even John McWhorter, after Kaufness opened the way, he got in on the act. And as in my interview with Ishmael Reed, he said, "Look, McWhorter has been at this for decades, and he also tied this in to the PayPal billionaire Peter Thiel. So, and Thiel wants this sort of ideal, all white sort of society, and it's not Ishmael's idea of a conspiracy theory, but I don't know.
Well,
It just paints a global.
okay. You've just opened it. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I was watching one of the morning news programs, right? And
Mhm.
there was a gentleman, Hill. The correct pronunciation in Spanish is Hill, but everybody says Gil, of course. Gil
Mhm.
Duran. He's put out a new book.
Oh
It's
yeah,
only,
Gilderon.
only
Yeah,
a week or so old. I got a copy and rammed through it. I cheated and jumped to the end,
that's all
and
right. I know
looked
I've heard about this book.
look through
He's
some of his
yeah.
conclusions. Okay, the important consideration is that his, from my perspective, his initial analysis and his listing of all of the people that were involved in this. The title of the book is "The Nerd Reich." Okay, so
Mhm.
nerd, Nerd, Reich
Mhm.
as in the Third Reich. And I said to the television, of course, I yelled, Teal, it's the
Yeah.
first name. And Andreessen,
Yeah.
Musk.
What is that part of his thesis, or did he leave them
That
out?
is it. That is
Oh,
exactly where he
yeah,
went. He said, okay, here are all the guys. They were
yeah,
all in the same place at the same time. They were in the San Francisco area in Silicon Valley, and they all had these values, okay? And he
right.
listed them all, and he does it on everything, man. And so I said, okay, great. Does he have any suggestions on how to deal with the problem? And he does, but they didn't cover it in their discussion. I was
Oh,
really ticked off. I said, look,
well,
they did it again. They introduce us to the book. They give
yeah.
this guy his 3 minutes of fame, right? He gets a little bit of talk, but they don't talk about the most
All
important
right,
thing.
all right, basically, he was saying that it was more than coincidence that these people with these extreme right wing, Third Reichian kind of ideas were all in the Bay Area.
Racist as hell.
Yeah,
Racist, and clearly racist.
and,
They came
and
from South Africa, two of
right,
them, right? I mean,
right.
look, come on.
Yeah, and this is the time when everyone was looking at tech as the savior. It was going to be so far left. It was going to be we were going to fix the planet. Look at the workplace. Look how great the workplaces are. They got free foosball. It's just great, right? And now we see they're anti-union. They're pro-monopoly. They are everything for the advantage the billionaire class. This is the second coming
They
of
support mass
the
deportation.
yeah,
They
yeah,
support mass deportation. They invest in freaking private prisons. Okay?
yeah.
Well, come on. This is
Well,
so
this is
obvious. It's
well,
been obvious, but the
well,
general public will not accept that that's the premise of American society at this point. That the people who have the greatest influence on government and society and the culture in general are
mhm.
racist as hell. And this is what they've wanted all along. It's
well,
in Project 2025.
well,
How many times have I said this on your show?
oh yeah, but here's the thing: people initially saw the tech people as hey, it's technology. This is a new thing. It's of course it's liberal. Tech didn't really have a political edge, but because it was money, there was a natural edge toward the conservative. But they hid it. No one knew. I mean, Trump, Musk was a Democrat for the longest time, right? Same with Teal, I think. And
Yeah,
then suddenly,
but why
their
were
true.
they? They were
Well,
Democrats because of the popularity of certain presidents at the time.
yeah.
Initially, it
Well,
was Clinton. Initially,
mhm,
it was Clinton, right?
yeah.
And then Obama.
Obama.
And so
Yeah.
because of so they wanted to do that. But when they saw the amount of movement that
Mhm,
the right, and especially the white Christian right, okay,
yeah.
when they saw that as the base of Trump's movement, and when
Mhm,
they saw his willingness to grant a special economic status to
yeah.
their monopolies or near monopoly businesses, right?
Mhm, yeah.
They had to move over, and
Yeah.
so they stood on the podium with him, and they're about ready to drop billions of dollars into this. And this is only a midterm election. Think
Yeah.
about what they're going to do in preparation for the 2028 presidential.
Yeah, well, this just shows that the big tech class were always apolitical, always selfish, always looking out for themselves.
Yeah,
In the same way that Trump is not ideological and is not, he's really apolitical. It's just anything that will benefit
absolutely true.
me, anything that will benefit me, and that's why they were at the
He was a
inaugural.
Democrat because he lived in New York, which is obviously a blue city. Okay, okay,
Right,
at least ever since the Second World War.
right,
Similarly, San Francisco, right?
yeah, yeah,
Similarly, L.A. proper, right?
yeah,
Itself. Similarly, Chicago.
yeah,
So that's what you got to do, and
yeah. All right,
people have to understand they're only political animals for the utility of those structures. That's it.
yeah, and so when we put the dots together, we see how the Arday story, and then we link it to, Teal is, behind this sort of, going after people like Arday, going after people of color in these white spaces, unless, of course, they're replacing them with people like McWhorter, right? The
Yeah.
African American conservative scholar, or increasingly the South Asian Indian conservative scholar, or the Vietnamese, or
That's
I
an
haven't
old
seen
problem
any.
as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen any Filipino conservatives, but
There
I'm just
are.
saying. Yeah, I'm sure there are Filipino conservatives voting, but who?
Ohio's all full of
Oh,
Filipino
that's right.
conservatives.
Ohio has some Philip, but yeah, there's a couple of local mayors, or one local mayor in particular. I think he's still there. But I mean, the thing is, we we have this sense in our society. So our day is very relevant, and is very relevant to everyone's lives here in the U.S.
Well, okay,
To his story.
if you want a parallel for people that feel the need to overly embellish their life experience, all you got to do is remember George Santos
Oh, yeah,
from New York,
yeah,
right? I mean, he overly embellished his stuff. We've seen people on both sides of the political spectrum, right, or all areas of the political spectrum,
yeah,
over embellish, and but most recently, it's been more Republicans than anyone, and they usually embellish things like their military record. In some
yeah.
instances, they never served in the military, and I don't know how stupid you could be to try and claim that, right?
Well,
Okay.
Trump puts pictures of him in his high school military academy outfit. That's the
Yeah,
only
that's right.
military he
That's right.
served, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
people don't even understand what that means. You know, what did that mean? When you had anyone in your knowledge base, right? When we were kids in high school,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then you found out that right after grammar school somebody was sent to a military academy, what did that mean to you? How did you read that?
Oh, this guy is not a good student and is a discipline problem.
There
And
it is.
the
And were
parents
we
are
right
trying.
most of the time?
Well, yeah, but I remember there used to be a show. Now I'm going to date myself, but there was a show called McKeever's Colonel. Remember McKeever's Colonel?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
McKeever was in a military academy, and I remember telling my mom, "Mom, maybe I want to go to a military academy." And I didn't realize, no, I'm not that bad. I'm not bad enough to go to a military academy. I'm barely good enough to go to catechism, but I'm not bad enough to go
Yeah.
to a
Well, but
military
she wanted you
academy.
to be a priest anyway, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So anyway,
All
so Dan, final thought on our day. The less, I mean, I'm glad that I got into it because when you get into it, you say, "Wow, they went after him. There was piling on, and and
well,
maybe this is
and
a scenario he couldn't
you
take it."
have to see that it parallels what we're going through now
Mm,
here in the United States, and you have to understand that there are more subtle ways after going against people, right? But
yeah.
this was one of them, and one of the professors, one of my favorite folks, who was Native American,
Mm,
First Nation person, and she was the chair of our Native American Studies program at SF State, was charged with plagiarism.
mm.
And to make it clear that they were serious, she was charged with plagiarism by a fellow Native American in another department.
Ooh,
Okay.
that's like trying to. That's like strategic. That's strategic racism there.
Exactly.
Strategic racism.
Exactly.
Like they fire an Asian, replace him with another minority Asian
Yep.
or another a black person.
That's what they
Strategic
do.
racism.
They
Yeah,
they they want to avoid being seen as openly racist, and so they get somebody of the same kind, right,
yeah,
to
yeah,
go against you, and so she won her case.
yeah.
Okay, they
But she got
wanted
to
her
fight
out.
it.
She
She had to
won her
fight it.
case, but she was subject to an NDA, so she could never tell people that she won her case, and she could never tell people how much money she got out of it. But she ended up being hired down in Southern California, where she was originally from anyway. And she had a lot of family down there, right?
Mhm.
And so it was our major loss. I mean, she was
Yeah,
just a great person all around, and for us, for me, a professor in ethnic studies, it was a major loss, and I never forgave those fools for going after her, and I was able to make sure that they did not advance in their own careers. Okay.
see, so this is the politics,
Hey,
academic politics.
yeah, well, okay.
And but look, the good thing about this situation you're talking about, yeah, too bad, NDA. I understand, because I had to sign an NDA too, right? I know what that's about, but uh, you still have to fight it. You have to undergo the battle and the struggle. And I don't know if your friend, no matter how much money she got, is totally well after that fight. And that's the thing in the Arday story.
So I
He
do keep in contact with her, and she seems to me to be quite happy and doing quite well.
Well, that's good because for Jason Arday, uh,
No, it didn't work out that
it
way.
didn't happen. It
Like I
didn't happen,
said, see,
and
like
that,
George Santos, completely insensitive, right?
yeah,
So he didn't try to commit suicide after everything. Virtually 90% of all of the claims that he made were false.
yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
but how about this, Dan? How about when things work out, right? It's usually a white guy. Like look at Cohen. Cohen.
Oh no, Real
He
disappointment.
turncoat,
He's
and
he's
now
wiggling his way back in.
yeah,
He's back in the Trump
and then
favor again.
there's a New York writer who was accused of plagiarism on his Mom Donnie book. I think they suspended publication for a while. He lost one job, but is getting a second chance at the Nation to write a column. The idea is the R days, they go down one path and they may not survive, but the white males successful, even though when they're questioned on the issue of plagiarism, especially, they get a second chance.
Yeah, well, it's not limited to white. I don't want to go all the way down that route, but it is generally true. It is generally true that there's
Yeah,
a greater likelihood. I mean, this is also the case in the courts.
yeah,
When race and class mean everything,
yeah,
in the courts,
yeah,
and it's always been true. It's if a white upper middle class individual is charged with the same crime, similar facts, as a person of color, right?
Mm.
In a separate case, the likelihood that the person of color would be convicted is much higher than the
Yeah.
likelihood that the white person of upper middle class or higher of
Yeah.
position will be convicted.
Yeah.
That was the argument that I made in the case of Mr. White.
Yeah. You
Okay,
know,
and he killed two prominent politicians. Okay,
Dan White, if in case you're
yes,
wondering, well, which White is he talking about? A white guy or no? Dan White, the
Dan White,
former
former supervisor,
supervisor of San
Eagle
Francisco.
Scout,
Yeah.
decorated Vietnam War veteran, decorated cop, police
Mm.
officer, decorated fireman.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was let off on manslaughter.
Yeah.
He was convicted of manslaughter. He was released from prison within 3 years and made it back out onto the street and then committed suicide because he was a pariah. Nobody wanted him around.
Yeah, well, this is sort of what happens. We'll follow the Jason Arday story and to see number one if it's a suicide, number two if he is ever, um, formally, um, if the investigation shows he in fact plagiarized or not, unclear still. And we'll see what happens to the band of people who are out there to get him, including this guy Nathan Kaufness, John McWhorter, all these guys, because we're not done. I mean, just because the Supreme Court in the United States said that affirmative action is dead at Harvard and at UNC, we're not done with it. We're not done with this idea of DEI. Not yet. And the battle continues.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you can see where the battle, the formation of the battle, okay, is going the direction by just looking at which attorney generals in which states have major lawsuits against the Trump administration. Because
Yeah.
those same states are the ones that are most likely to protect the basic notion of social justice.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
in
of course,
whatever form it might take.
yeah,
Right.
of course, California, Attorney General Bonta, Filipino American, half Filipino.
It's the West Coast, man.
Yeah. West Coast. All right, so let's move on to another topic. You brought it to my attention. I wanted to talk about briefly the primaries and the midterms because it's campaign season. We got Trump campaigning for Darlene doesn't know what she's doing, and that's just and that's just fine. She's Lindsey Graham's sister. That's all. This is a kind of nepotism for Darlene Graham, who knows nothing. But that's the perfect kind of puppet sycophant that MAGA wants, the puppet sycophant of Lindsey Graham's sister, who doesn't know
You said
national security.
I'm not like my brother, an expert on world affairs. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm not even a good golfer or whatever. But she's there. Well, why are you there? You're there because we want
Yeah,
Trump
man.
wants dumb.
I mean, yeah, it's fun to make fun of her, but that's not the most important thing about the midterms, right? The most
Well, no,
important thing
no,
about
no.
the midterms. Come on, man.
It's not the most important race, but that race, if it is important because we're talking about one or two, senatorial
Yeah, yeah,
positions.
that's true.
I'm not
There you
saying
go. That's
Darlene.
the most important
I'm
thing.
not saying Darlene Graham is the most important thing, but it shows the bogus nature of of Trump backing. The best sycophant is a sycophant who knows nothing, not a sycophant who knows something like Cornyn or
Uh,
all those guys. Sad because they're smarter than that.
You
But
know,
no,
see, it's a horrible thing that we can make the presumption that's what's going to happen, but it is an accurate presumption, okay? Because
yeah,
that is what happens. Okay,
yeah.
the most important thing about the midterms is the likelihood now. Okay, Texas, and Iowa are now toss-ups.
Oh yeah. Well, there's
Okay,
of the
toss-ups.
nine, yeah, of the nine markets of the nine states, Democrats only need four, and they have now pathways into multiple
Yes,
states. So,
yes,
and
and well,
that's
the
a good
important
sign.
consideration is that Texas hasn't had a statewide office person since since it's been thirty-eight
Richardson,
years. It's yeah, like the 80s,
and
right?
Richardson, I think.
Yes, and she was
So
great. She was a
yeah, she was
fantastic
good.
governor. just
Yeah, and
and a
that's
good
back in
and a
the
great
time when
person all around.
yeah, that was back in the time when I lived in Texas or close, and Texas was tolerable. But now it's swung way over. All right, so we have the race that came up in the primary this past week, Angie Nixon, because she
Yeah,
was a black woman
yeah.
uh, who very local. She beat Vindeman, who was the Ukrainian American who
Well, he's got a
testified
twin
against Trump.
brother that's already in Congress, and,
Yeah, but
and
yeah.
yeah, and he had a national rep,
Mhm.
not quite as well known as his brother,
Yeah,
but having very similar, military pattern and all the rest of it, and he was funded heavily.
yeah.
He was the most conservative contrast that I saw was 9-1.
I know he had everything going his way, but he couldn't beat Angie Nixon. And
Because
Nixon,
Walsky did a great on the ground thing, man, and she
yeah,
was well known. She
yeah,
was well known,
all right,
northern Florida.
yeah,
Tallahassee is really different from the
oh
rest
yeah.
of Florida.
University town, state house there. I love Tallahassee
Yeah,
because when I was going to Georgia a lot in that part of Georgia, I'd go down to
yeah,
Tallahassee.
yeah.
Great little city. But now she is a Democratic Socialist. DSA, Democratic Socialist of America.
She is an actual member. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
she joined the DSA.
Is she going to be able to win the general? That's the question.
I don't
No,
know.
she can't.
I don't know.
And but
It's going to be very interesting to see if that one happens.
But the fact that she was able to stand up and win the Democratic primary shows that, I talked to a Democratic senator then for a story I'm doing, and he said, "Look, we're a big tent. We're growing. We got to like us all, And but I don't know. I didn't ask him about Nixon, but
There was a time in past history where both parties were much bigger tents than they are now.
oh yeah, yeah,
You could talk about conservative Democrats, you could talk about liberal centrist Democrats, and you could talk about far left progressives. They didn't even use the term progressive at the time. They only used the
no,
term liberal, right?
yeah,
And liberal left, further left, that kind of thing. Okay, and you
yeah,
could say the same for Republicans. That there were
yeah,
centrist Republicans, there were moderate. They called themselves moderates, right?
mhm.
Remember that? Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
some people even claim to be liberal Republicans. They
yeah,
say I'm socially liberal, I'm fiscally conservative, but
yeah,
socially liberal, right?
yeah,
So both parties had a recent history, right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, once
Look,
again, I'm forgetting my age.
yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
guess let's go back about 2 generations.
Well, it is. Well, I did that the other day too. Oh, certainly that was just in the '80s. The '80s was like 40 years ago, Emil.
That's it. That was
It's
the
like
last
three.
time we saw that, and the great prevaricator of that scope was Ronald Reagan, the
Yeah,
guy that they like to cite for sainthood.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
who was the guy that was most in favor of immigration? Yeah,
yeah.
what?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Oh, he was for cutting the debt, and this week we're $40 trillion in debt, and
Ouch!
we've got
Ouch!
all
This is
this.
horrible.
We've got all
This
this. Yeah,
this
we got
is
all the tape
grossly
of.
important. This
Yeah, we
you
got.
have hit on something that is grossly important
Yeah.
and that both parties don't know how to deal with. All right?
Trump has to deal with both the war, which cost immense amounts of money. He can't get out of it. It's going to add to the debt. He said he was going to, the point of no return was like when the debt was at what 16, 20 million or 20 trillion. Now it's
Yeah.
40
20
trillion.
trillion.
Where are we going? Where are we going now? And he has no answers. It's surprising that anyone
He has
is.
answers, dude. He has answers.
Yeah, yeah,
All of these things that are going to bear my name and image,
yeah.
they all are going to get paid for by private money. That's his
Oh yeah,
answer. And it's a goddamn lie. Just
yeah,
like who paid for the damn Qatari jet,
yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, 400 the plane was worth 400 million, but all the retrofitting and all that
Yeah.
that's going to be look, I just think it
And we
should be
paid for
obvious
it.
to
That's
people.
public money, man. That's
Yeah,
public
yeah,
money. He's
Yeah.
doing no bid contracts, and these
Yeah.
people are getting no bid contract. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question: what percentage of Musk's money, right,
Mhm.
comes from government contracts?
Oh, probably at least a third to half, I bet.
There you go. It's about 40%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
40%. And the worst thing about it is we're stuck. We're
Yeah.
stuck because we're dependent on stuff like Starlink. Okay?
Yeah.
He's more than half of the space exploration.
Yeah, and
He's
this
more
is the
than half of
problem.
that.
He came in and he rigged it for himself. He cut all the things that we should have kept, and he kept stuff open so that he can get all the money that he could get. And now he's out of it, except he's still in it because we have AI. He's pushing AI and crypto,
And
and
he's
of
not
course,
alone. They're all
yeah,
pushing AI.
they're all, yeah, and Trump is pushing data centers when data centers could be the it could be the thing. It could be the Achilles heel, right? Because
Well,
because no one likes data centers. No one wants a data
well,
center.
not the way they're running them. Okay?
Yeah,
I mean, their cooling systems are powered by jets.
yeah.
Come on, man. Jet engines. Okay. That's brilliant. Okay. And then the best way that they came up with dealing with that is to put mufflers on them and try to soundproof the buildings. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
The Chinese have come up with new technology to address the need for power, right? More
Mhm,
electricity. Okay. As
mhm.
well as the generation of heat. They actually have underwater data centers
Oh yeah. Well,
underwater.
and if that doesn't work, they'll put the data centers up in space, right?
Yeah,
Right.
well, yeah, they're kind of big, but yeah, if they
I,
could, they would. They just,
yeah.
set up. They're going to get ready. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese, they don't get along with the Indians, right?
Oh.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the China now, and they're screwing up now. But I don't know. It's
Hey,
possible
what
for the
if you were?
Chinese to put up not just a satellite, but a
Mhm.
whole construction that would be the equivalent of our space stations.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's one way. How about this? What if instead of the Great Wall, replace the Great Wall with the Great Data Center Wall?
Yeah, no, just renovate.
Yeah, and you could
Just
see
put
it
them
from
inside the
space.
wall.
You can see it from space. The Great
I
Data
like it.
Center Wall.
I
You
like
know,
it.
yeah,
I really like
there.
it.
There's my $1 million idea for all you entrepreneurs from the
Yeah,
MAGA
that's a
side.
great idea, man.
Yeah. All right, so look, let's switch over to the thing that Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about the war he can't get out of, the illegal war. He doesn't want to talk about any of that, but talk about Strait of
Oh, wait,
Hormuz.
wait, wait. I want one last thing on the data centers, okay?
Yeah.
You know how Montana still wants people, they want ICE to raid their populations, local populations, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
because they don't have as much agriculture as all of the neighboring states, right? So,
Uh-huh.
Montana and Wyoming don't have that much agriculture. They don't need Latinos and other non-white people as
Mhm.
much. And so they want to, I say put the data centers in Montana and Wyoming.
Ah, now that's good. Yeah. Then the white people will be in the data centers running
You
the
know,
data
and
centers.
and there's plenty of open space. What's Montana? The big sky, right? I mean,
Big sky. There it is.
well, yeah,
The- They're all right. All right. That's a good idea too. I'll hand it to you. Here, high five, high five. All right. So, let me ask you this about we were talking about ballroom. The ball.
yeah,
He
yeah.
wants to. Yeah, he
SCOTUS.
doesn't want to talk about the war. He doesn't want to talk about the Strait of Hormuz. Although he did this, someone leaked. The White House leaked on itself. The White House said, "Oh, we are controlling part of the South. It's not pre-war levels, but we're controlling it." So the White House was leaking on itself, putting that out there. But we're still hurting.
It's a national security issue, dude.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it?
but
And I'll prove it. I'll prove it.
yeah.
I'll show you why it's a national security issue. I'll show you the blueprints for the underground
Well, look,
protective.
you want to help out your Russian buddies. You
I'm
want
going
to
to
help
show
out your
you the bunker. Okay. This is where it's going to be. This is the
yeah.
dimensions.
It just saves a couple clicks of the Minox camera. We say here it is. We're gonna. All right, so look, Donald Trump will talk about the ballroom. He'll talk
It's
about
going to be
all of
right
this.
here. It's going to be
Yeah,
right.
but you were saying
They
there was
bought it. SCOTUS
yeah
said good. Okay. They lied. Okay, Robert says? No, it's a stay. We have put down
Oh, wait,
a
wait. Let me
stay.
let me set it up. Let me set it up. So
Okay.
the SCOTUS said the ballroom can't be done. Donald Trump has made his appeal to SCOTUS because the lower court has blocked the construction from going forward. But what did John Roberts, the Chief Justice, do um, today? I believe.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. What did he
He
do?
he ordered he ordered a stay, which should mean equilateral stay. In other words,
Mm,
they can't go forward, right?
mm,
And unless he got some congressional approval, that's the suggestion or
yeah.
implication, right? But
Mm,
that's not what happened. He
yeah.
said, "Okay, you can go ahead and continue with the construction." And as though the national security issue is legitimate, that's
Yeah.
legit complaint. Well, the reality is he could have said, okay, go forward with only the national security material, the actual bunker. You need to have that as quickly as possible. Could have done something like that, but he did not. And this is brazen hypocrisy, just
Yeah.
outright brazen hypocrisy. It's right up there with the original immunity decision, right?
And it shows how corrupt the court is. The
Absolutely.
court is corrupt. I mean, this is Donald Trump. Everything is rigged in his favor. This is the ultimate rigging. You've got Congress, you've got the Supreme Court. The founders couldn't imagine anyone this corrupt or this bad who would call himself American, let alone be white and wealthy. And he's not a founder, he's not a founding father, but he is
You
now
know,
almost in full control.
Dude is taking our money, man. I
Yeah,
mean, dude is taking our money. He's taking my money. Okay, okay.
yeah,
He's taking your money. Okay, you got to the American people, whatever your color, whatever your political ilk, well, it doesn't matter.
mm,
You got to understand you're being ripped off. Okay,
yeah.
and it's blatant. It's in your face. It's open corruption. Yeah.
Once again, hard to believe that anyone likes this guy enough to vote for him unless you are truly deluded into thinking that his self interest is your self interest. It's not. You are voting for his self interest and his self interest alone.
Look, man. It's it seems overly simplistic, and I would be accused by fellow political scientists
No, no,
of
no, I
being
never,
of
never.
no, I would be accused of being reductionist. That's
No,
so
no, no, no,
reductionist.
no.
Racism is one of the major motivations of the people
Ah,
that continue to support Trump. The
that's
people who love the idea of mass deportation. Okay,
yeah,
I can't wait to see what they do when the grocery prices go even higher.
yeah,
Okay, even higher, because there's not enough people to harvest the food, to clean the meat, to make stuff packable so that it ends up on the shelves and in the fridges and freezers of your supermarkets. Okay, that's going to
yeah.
happen by October and November. We're only a month and a half away from all of that, man.
Yeah. And
Okay.
now that you say the magic word racism, it harkens back to when we were talking about the Arday case.
Yes.
Because the Arday case is about, oh, you don't belong here. You people of color, you don't belong in this
No,
position.
it was
You don't
worse than
belong.
that. You have no. Wait a minute. You criticized us for being racist.
Yeah.
We're not going to
Yeah.
let you get away with that.
Yeah.
Okay? We're not going to
Yeah.
let you get away with that. We're going to try and find you and deport you all. They just what? They deported. The report that I got is 190 Haitians
Yeah.
back. Okay, so temporary protection status is over. TPS is over. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's starting to happen. I want to see how all of those elderly folk that are heavy duty MAGA and Trumpers, okay, all over the South and particularly in Florida. Okay,
Mhm.
I want to see how they feel when their caretakers start disappearing. How
Yeah.
about Ohio, where there's a whole city, right? That was being supported by
Springfield,
but
Springfield,
yes,
the
Springfield, Ohio.
The Haitian community. Well,
Yes,
well,
yes,
well, let's talk about the thing you sent me about the Bay Area, where you got in 2025, ICE arrests of AAPI, Asian
yes.
Pacific Islander communities, increased 1,100% compared to the prior year, and nearly one out of every four taken by ICE is a Southeast Asian community member. They are going after the Southeast Asian community, and I mean, I mean Laotian, I mean Vietnamese, I mean they're going after them with event Cambodian, Hmong, and this is something that's happening. I mean, how every day I read a story about someone who goes in to get a regular kind of check in, they're in the process of legalizing, and then they get captured and they get sent back. Some of them are longtime visa holders, right? Or
Yes.
protected by tips, and now that protective status is now temporary, it's gone, and people are being deported. They're
Yep.
being deported.
Yep. That was sent to me. It was forwarded to me by a fellow professor and former student of mine,
Yeah.
Marie Lorraine Magliari, who teaches at Sac State.
Yeah, the Asian Prisoner Support Committee.
Yeah, she works with them. She actually does prisoner defense, and she
Mhm.
checks on people at local prisons up and down Northern California, down to Central California. I don't know how she gets the time to do all that, man,
Yeah,
but
I know.
she's been an excellent, not only a resource in terms of explaining to me what's going on, describing the conditions. It originated with her being interested in getting for herself
Yeah,
a perspective inside the detention centers, and then she took on an attorney that works with her and has worked with Filipino community
yeah.
in the
Well,
past. Uh,
yeah. Well,
or
this
helped
is the thing.
other prisoners as well.
This is the thing. When you're in the community and this is happening, uh, you got to know an attorney. You got to be able to, or I guess this worked for my dad. You keep your head down. You're not seen. You go
Yeah.
underground in a way. It's hard to imagine that that's the best possibility, but in this day and age, they're driving people underground.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I should mention, I mentioned Marie Lorraine's name. I should mention also the attorney that she worked with is Lourdes Tancinco, who you
Oh
know
yeah, I
quite
know. Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Okay.
I know both of them. I know Lorraine pretty
Yeah.
well. So all right, so that's the ice story. Uh, we'll just end up with the harp story. Um, Natalie Harp is
Natalie. See, everybody knows her first name, man, and they're just
yeah.
going to stick with Natalie.
Yeah, well, it's she's the blonde with the fax machine who's constantly feeding Trump information, and Trump. This is when I presume when Trump is awake. John Ossoff, the senator from Georgia who's running, made Natalie a well, he brought her into the campaign when he talked about Trump and Natalie flying in the jet, in their luxury jet.
That,
I
that,
mean,
that
yeah,
she was one of the three people that represent the security blanket. You
yeah,
know,
and yeah,
like
and it,
Linus from Peanuts, right? You got to
yeah,
have a security blanket, and she is one element of that
yeah,
security blanket, and but of course the general implication, that was the reaction from the general population, of course, is what's he doing with? I remember on Kimmel's show, I can't remember which guest host it was, but they put up a picture
yeah,
of the three people that were in the freaking catering truck
yeah,
with Trump, and then they asked Guillermo, right, Kimmel's sidekick, Guillermo, which one do you think he picked? And he goes, they had the State Department, Marco Rubio, as one of the pictures and all that. Even Hegseth as one of the
yeah.
pictures, and he says, "Oh, the hot one," and of
No, no,
course it was Natalie, you
yeah.
know,
The three in the
but it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that, man. She
uh,
was without security clearance for a year.
oh well, yeah. So she's hearing stuff, and only her love of Donald Trump is preventing her from selling her soul to the Soviet Union. Oh, excuse me,
Or
the
anybody,
Russians, to
anybody.
anybody, to anybody. No, I think it's bad. I think it was intended to be somewhat sexual. It was taken that way by MAGA because where is
Yeah, because
Melania?
MAGA is sexual as hell.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
these guys are
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
They're
and
crazy. You
and
know.
the thing about Trump is sexual, and to think that Donald Trump isn't getting any that is like, that would be, why would we vote for this guy, an impotent guy who has to take Blue Chew? Why would we vote for this guy? He's not fit for to be president. He's fit to sleep with Natalie. He can sleep. I mean, like literally sleep, and then with his CPAP machine on.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's good that we're focusing, or that the media has shined some light on Nellie Hart, because she has this strange kind of relationship, this access.
It's not
It's
strange. Her devotion sounds like the devotion of someone who is a stalking kind of fan. It's
yeah,
just extreme. But what makes it creepy is that she's so young and he's so old. That's what makes it creepy. People can't help but go there. Okay,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and so the point is well made. Okay, let's revisit what Epstein again.
yeah.
Let's
I
talk
love
about
I
it.
love
What does she
Natalie
look
Harp.
like? How does she look to you?
I love
She doesn't.
Natalie Harp.
She
The
doesn't
the
look like
likes
she's
of
in her
which
30s to me.
the
You
likes
know.
of which we've never seen. I like Natalie. I like Natalie. She's very good. She's very good. She's very good. So I, Natalie Harp. All right. So
Yeah.
uh, on that note, Dan, we've covered Arday. I'm telling you, I wanted to avoid the Jason Arday story. Now I'm reading his book. It's a sad story. A guy who was, he was diagnosed with autism as a kid. He wasn't going to amount to anything. He becomes something, and yet these anti DEI folks attack him, and just like, you know, I people who've been beneficiaries of affirmative action, they get attacked. They are looked on with suspicion. And if you are an American and don't know the Jason Arday story, know this story, because you know how you, to a lesser degree, you are Jason Arday if you're a person of color trying to make it in white spaces in America. It is a
Yeah. Well,
sad
I
state.
I do hope that that your position on this and the way you explained it, to the importance of it to our audience. I hope it does have that kind of an effect. But we've also
But
talked about race and racial hierarchy
mm,
within our
yeah,
own communities, and that's another one of the reasons. Not only is it foreign because it's Brit, it's also foreign because it's a black academic
yeah.
at a universally admired institution.
Well, Cambridge, right? Oxbridge. I mean, that they're the preeminent global institutions
Yeah, that's right.
uh, that aren't being attacked by Donald Trump, except
Well,
in this way, by
yeah,
by
he's
surrogates.
a he went to Penn, and so what did he go to Penn or Penn State?
He went to Wharton, so Penn.
Yeah, Penn. Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
went to Wharton undergrad, and
right.
then yeah, who
And
knows?
there are suspicions that he bought his way out.
Well, he certainly has the money, and so
Well,
um,
Daddy had the money. Daddy
yeah,
was still
daddy,
around at
daddy
the
did.
time.
So Dan, did you see the 49ers play last night?
Oh man, it was too good to be true.
They don't look so bad this year. Yeah,
I
I may have to like them again.
don't know. You got to give them a break. They don't look so bad. They played a lot of their first line group,
Yeah,
and they looked really good. And I'm glad that they didn't want to risk injuries and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Uh, but I felt sorry for Martinez.
He
Uh,
did okay. I mean, what
yeah,
happened?
well,
I
he threw
did.
2 interceptions, though, man. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah,
so
but
he's gotta watch out. Purdy had a day similar to that when he premiered as well, when he
yeah.
debuted. The guy that looked great and he looked like he could take over just like he did last year was Mac Jones, man.
Oh
He
yeah,
was sharp.
Yeah,
He
Mac
was
Jones looked
super
good,
sharp.
but the quarterback who was hurt, Rourke,
Rourke,
and I think he's back on the active list. I think that's why Martinez needs to worry, because I think Rourke looked
that's
better than
true.
Martinez the
Yeah.
previous week, and I like Martinez. I thought the plays that I saw him do. I thought he did well. I didn't see the two interceptions. I must have been watching,
Well,
the
not only did
WNBA or something.
on the positive side, he threw two fantastic passes that should have been caught,
Yeah.
and,
Well, look, that guy's dribbling. Good
hey,
receiver. Good
woohoo,
receiver. Good receiver. So,
woohoo,
I know. I think I'm don't not norm. Well, sometimes I'm very into football. I might be into football this year. But the 49ers are in a tough division. They're in with the Rams, in
yep.
with the Seahawks. Maybe they can beat the Seahawks. They always beat the Rams when they have to. So maybe Debo will bring them some luck,
Well,
and
and
they'll
yeah, but see, Debo's got somebody to pair up with now.
yeah, yeah.
And they got their tight ends. They can do, they got to try out for more tight ends. I think their defensive line is where we need to worry once again.
Yeah,
Um,
Bosa's not back.
yeah, yeah,
And the young guys, they get better, with more
yeah. They're
experience.
looking good, and some of them are
Yeah,
gigantismo, man.
yeah. Yeah, I think they'll be good. I think they drafted well. I think they'll be. It's going to be tough. They'll be in the playoffs, but I don't
Well,
know.
let's see. I don't want to count,
Need a
eggs
little
before they're
luck.
chickens.
You got yeah, need a
You
little
know,
luck, and you need to get past that Australia game. All
yeah.
right, so Dan, yeah, it's good to see you again. We got September's coming up. Wow, September's
Coming up
coming up.
fast, dude.
Yeah, it's
Labor
coming up.
Day, Labor
Yeah,
Day.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the point of no return for as far as the politics of the midterms
Well,
are.
yeah, we're like what 70 days, something like that away. It's
Yeah,
it's
72 now, I think.
yeah, it's really close, and really that is should be the focus. There are 9 states that if they flip, and the Democrats only need 4, we would have a totally different, second half of this term where you think Donald Trump's on the defensive now? He won't be able to talk about
Well, yeah, that's
ballrooms.
yeah, and if the Republicans grow a spine on some issues, if they want to have any hope for doing well in 2028, they should meet in the middle. If the Democrats come up with good plans, they need to meet in the middle, okay,
Yeah,
and agree to like block the tariffs, roll all that stuff back, come up with new treaty agreements with our closest allies and partners. They got a lot of work to do.
yeah.
They got a lot of work to do.
Hard to believe they're being a-holes to Canada. I mean, I was watching Canadian broadcasting. They're thinking, okay, we'll let the American liquor come in, but no one's going to buy any of that stuff. No one's
Yeah.
going to drink any of that stuff. We're going to
Uh,
drink Canadian hooch, and there's a lot of Canadian whiskey, Canadian beer. Forget the California wine, and it's unfortunate because
well,
not many.
yeah, and it's especially when they started growing their own stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Linda and I went on a wine trip, I think, for our 40th birthday, and
yeah.
even then, nearly 40 years ago,
Mhm.
on
Up in British Columbia.
a Napa Valley wine trip. Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
nice. It was a
yeah.
horse-drawn coach and stuff, and everything. All the meals were local. Man, it was really good. But there was a couple with us, very young. They just gotten married, and so they took a trip down here, and we started comparing wines with Washington wines. They were from
Yeah,
Washington,
Washington.
and they were already. And so I said, "Well, what about BC, British Columbia? I mean, are they growing anything?" They said, "Oh yeah, they are, but it's not as good. It's not as well done as what's growing now in Washington." So we really had a great. That was almost 40 years ago, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But well, no, I talked to some people in
They
Canada.
don't need
They,
us. They
yeah,
don't need us, man.
they're in the wine business, and
Yeah.
or they have a little thing, and they're doing well. So I think, yeah, we need to be nicer to our neighbors,
Well, we
north and
need their,
south.
we still build stuff out of their wood. I mean,
Yeah,
because they're way ahead of the game in terms of replenishable lumber and all
yeah,
that, right? And they they got a lot of our car parts, right? And really important things like transmissions, automatic
yeah,
trans. They're made there, so
yeah.
all this stuff. some of the stamping steel, and it's all done there.
Yeah.
This is really stupid. I mean,
Yeah,
these
they want to put tariffs on hockey sticks for US. Tariffs on hockey sticks. We need, well, a lot of the good American hockey players are coming down to the US, and it's unfortunate. But look, I just think Canada is. I've grown an appreciation for Canada in the last couple of years,
Oh no, it's a
having
great
been there.
place.
It's a great, 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 great country,
No, I don't
and
want to fly for a while. I don't want to fly for a while because the airlines keep buying Boeings, and
oh
I don't
yeah,
want to fly for a while. So I didn't, I'm trying to talk Linda into taking a trip through Canada. I want to drive through Canada. Uh,
oh, it's
you
a
know,
beautiful drive. Of course, go in the summertime.
yeah,
I don't think you want to be there anytime from October on. But
yeah. You want to
I
go
mean,
in either late summer or late spring.
yeah,
After the thaw. You know,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, Vancouver's nice generally, even
All the
when it's
time. It's nice
yeah,
all the time,
even yeah.
except it's just like Seattle, though. It rains a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
But I'll say, when I was in Winnipeg recently, it's great when you can see it, and you can see it in the summertime. But in December, January, February, you can't see it.
No, 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 no.
It's under ice.
No, it's wholly different. That's a wholly different thing. No, that's when you take the train, but the
Yeah,
train, even the train is expensive now, though. It's
yeah.
kind of bad. So that's why I
Well,
want to get a good all-wheel drive and just drive through.
yeah. Driving is fun through Canada. All
Yeah.
right, Dan. Listen, thanks for coming on. Say hi to Linda. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Same to Kath.
and yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk to you.
we got some birthdays coming up, within the
Yeah,
next month.
yeah, yeah. So, Dan, thank you for weighing in. I appreciate it. There he goes. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University professor emeritus. Uh, and some interesting perspective. I mean, you heard what he had to say about the Jason Arday story. I'm also on my channels putting out my interview with Ishmael Reed. Check that out. But you know where to find us on my Emil Amok one on YouTube. Um, YouTube has changed things. Where if you haven't subscribed to any of my YouTube channels, you ought to, because I don't get to be a partner with them unless I have these massive numbers. And I don't have massive numbers. I have like two little tiny Filipino numbers. Not really big numbers, but if you subscribe, yeah, youtube.com at Emil1. All right, so with that, we leave you with a little loving kindness. Sharon Salzberg, tribute, my homage to Sharon, one of the great meditation teachers in the U.S. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy, and may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here in my seersucker. Till next time.